Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our 5th annual Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead service at New Thought Community. My name is Sandra Michel-Jimenez, and I'm a practitioner here at NTC. It is an honor for me to present this message on this topic, as it has come to mean a lot to me. Let me start by saying that this custom isn't something that my family and I grew up doing, but rather, as I got older and the older generation of my grandparents passed over, and more recently, my parents passing over, that I became more interested in learning about this aspect of my culture, as it is my primary culture. Another significant reason why I have become more interested in this custom is because my mother passed on November 1st of 2014, which is All Saints Day, which is the beginning of Dia de los Muertos festivities. Honestly, looking at it now, I'm not surprised that my mom chose to leave her physical body and leave this earthly realm on that date. I really believe that she wanted us to know that she was leaving at a very special time. Dia de los Muertos is a beautiful time and a sacred way to honor our loved ones who've passed, and I can't articulate to you how much love was flowing in this sanctuary as Francisco Alvarez and I were creating this ofrenda, or sacred altar. I had no preconceptions or ideas about how it was going to turn out. We simply brought bags of things in to create it, and Francisco, with his curandero wisdom, says, let's begin from the foundation and build from there. Of course, this is how we build anything, with a firm foundation so that whatever we build has the strength to stand firm. So today, I'm going to share about Dia de los Muertos today, as if you're tuning in, those of you tuning in have a little knowledge about it, and maybe also clear up any misconceptions that might be out there regarding this. So I'm going to share what Dia de los Muertos is and why we celebrate it, where it originated, what some of the more popular traditions and symbols are, and lastly, I'll touch on how this tradition relates to religious science or science of mind. So Dia de los Muertos is a traditional Mexican custom where we commemorate and celebrate the lives of our dearly departed loved ones. It's typically celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. However, people in Mexico prepare weeks in advance, and they begin their festivities as early as October 28th. And because Dia de los Muertos falls so close to Halloween, some think that it's Mexican Halloween. But let me be perfectly clear, it is not Mexican Halloween. I think people believe that it is Mexican Halloween because of the abundant use of the symbolic calaveras, or skulls, and calacas, or skeletons. Dia de los Muertos is a celebration of life, of loved ones who have crossed over to the hereafter. On these 2 days, it's believed that the passageway between our physical world and the spiritual realm is open for our departed loved ones to come and visit us and to enjoy the pleasures of life with us. November 1st is when the children typically come back and visit, and November 2nd is when the adults come back to join in the festivities of bright colors, of music, of food, parades, traditional dances, prayer, and ritual before they head back to the spirit realm for another year. Dia de los Muertos originated in ancient Mesoamerica, which would have been Mexico and northern Central America, about 1,000 years before the Spaniards came to colonize the area in the 16th century. The indigenous Aztec, Maya, and Toltec all had times when they commemorated their departed, and all three cultures believed in the continuance of the soul after physical death. The Aztec believed that after death, the soul went to one of three places: the sun, Tlalocan, or Mictlan, according to how they passed over. So when the Spaniards came to Mexico, they introduced Catholicism to the indigenous peoples, and traditions were blended and new customs were created. Dia de los Muertos came about from the mixture of the festival dedicated to the Aztec goddess of death, Mictlantecuhtli, ruler of the underworld of Mictlan, along with the blending of those Spanish traditions. Her role was to watch over the bones of the dead and to preside over the festivals of the dead. And the Catholic Church later rejected the Aztecs tradition, and later these days became the minor holidays of All Saints' Day, November 1st, and All Souls' Day, November 2nd on the Catholic calendar. Today, Dia de los Muertos is celebrated mostly in Mexico and in some parts of Central and South America, but it has become increasingly popular in Latino communities, including the United States. I think this is in part due to the release of the animated movies Book of Life and Coco, which feature the theme of Dia de los Muertos. Dia de los Muertos festivities have morphed over the years to become the tradition that it has become today. In case you didn't know, Mexicans take their celebrating very seriously. There are several aspects and symbols that make up this unique way of honoring those who've passed. As I mentioned earlier, family members prepare for several weeks, creating a sacred altar or ofrenda. The ofrenda's origins go back to the Aztec custom of having offered food and water to the departed to assist them on their journeys. The ofrenda is one of the most recognized symbols of Dia de los Muertos. This temporary altar is a way to offer the departed food and water for their journeys, but also to honor them by placing their photos, their personal items, foods and beverages that they enjoyed while they were living in this world. Ofrendas can be simple or they can be very elaborate. And every ofrenda includes the 4 elements: water, so the spirits can quench their thirst; earth, represented by food, especially pan de muertos or bread of the dead; air, represented by the colorful perforated paper banners hung on the ofrendas and in the streets called papel picado; and fire, represented by burning candles, signifying the light that we are, and often placed as a cross to honor the Christian faith and for the cardinal directions. And many traditional ofrendas have 3 tiers or levels where specific items are placed. And as you can see, we have our 3 levels of the ofrenda that we have created. Level 1 represents the underworld. Ashes, dirt, and marigold flowers are placed here to remind us that from the earth we came and to the earth we'll return. Level 2 is the earth world. This is where food, drinks, more flowers, sugar skulls, and toys are placed. Photos can start to be placed here, and including pets who have passed over and candles. Level 3 is heaven or the afterlife, and this level is reserved for photos of departed loved ones. On this level, one can express a more religious aspect of the altar. Example, you can place figurines or statuettes of Jesus, Mother Mary, Buddha. You can place a picture of Ernest Holmes, your favorite crystals, maybe an angel card, anything of spiritual significance to you, and your loved ones can be placed on this top tier. Decorating the graves and resting places of the departed is another prominent activity that occurs with this tradition. On November 1st and 2nd, families gather at night at the cemeteries and they light candles and place marigold flowers at their family members' graves. Sometimes a trail of marigold petals are left from the grave to the family's homes to guide them to the home. The marigold flower is thought to attract the spirits with its bright orange color and its pungent fragrance. And there is also festive music and reflection and prayer too. As mentioned earlier, calaveras and calacas, or skulls and skeletons, are a huge part of this tradition, once again dating back to the Aztecs, as they used skulls in their rituals, and skulls were also passed as trophies during battle. Today, the skulls are represented by calaveras de azúcar, or sugar skulls, that are placed on the altars of the departed. The skull isn't used as a morbid symbol in this tradition, but as a whimsical reminder of the cyclicality of life. And the cartoonish female woman that we have here, known as La Catrina, is also very prominent in Dia de los Muertos. How did this come about? In the beginning of the 19th century, there was a cartoonist and social activist named José Guadalupe Posada, and he drew La Catrina to protest the Mexicans' desire to appear more like the Europeans who had come to colonize their lands. La Catrina has become one of the biggest symbols of Dia de los Muertos, with large numbers of people painting their faces with skulls and flowers as they celebrate. And of course, there is no celebrating without food in Mexico. Customary foods like sopa azteca, mole, tamales, pozole, and other traditional foods are prepared with the recipes having been passed down through the generations, and it's shared with family, with friends, with neighbors, with strangers, and of course with the visiting spirits. Pan de Muertos, which is a sweetbread, is made and placed on the altars as well. And all of these activities leading up to this event are important to and deeply rooted in Mexican culture. For Mexicans, this is a deeply spiritual practice and a family bonding experience. I offer this information to educate and to foster an appreciation of this aspect of our Mexican culture and to inspire you to incorporate some or all of them into your own ceremonies and rituals honoring your dearly departed. As long as it's done with an understanding of the tradition and done with a loving, honoring intention, I believe you can't get it wrong. This tradition need not be limited to Latinos or Mexicans, but can be inclusive of all. And lastly, how does Dia de los Muertos relate to religious science? Very clearly, it has to do with the continuity of the soul. In the Science of Mind Declaration of Principles, we have the spiritual principle that states we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the soul forever and ever expanding. And Ernest Holmes says, if a man is an incarnation of God, then his spirit is God individualized, and as such must be eternal. Since it is impossible to exhaust the divine, our expansion must be an eternal process of unfolding from a limitless center. Just as Jesus revealed himself to his followers after his resurrection to show them that death is but a passing to a higher sphere of life and action, let us then go forth to meet the new day, endeavoring to embody the Spirit of Christ, that the divine in us shall rise triumphantly, resurrected to live forever in the city of God. It is my hope that you now have a greater understanding of Dia de los Muertos, and that you take from this something of value that you can implement into your own lives to honor your departed loved ones and reframe the loss to include some ritual and some joyfulness in your remembering them. Thank you for letting me share this tradition of my culture with you, and thank you to everyone who participated in this with me. It is an honor to honor all of our departed loved ones. Gracias and namaste.